Hello there, everyone. How are we all?
Hi.
Good.
Hello. And hello, everyone in the comments. Lovely to meet you all. I particularly like Dan's hello from the exotic land of Birmingham. So it's very nice to know where everyone is and where everyone's tuning in from. I'm Will. Lovely to meet you all from Thrive, Senior Business Development Manager. And I'm going to be your hostess with the mostest for today. We're going to be having a chat to some amazing L&D professionals, the guys that you can see on the screen here, having a chat about how their sort of big retail brands are harnessing Thrive to deliver exceptional customer experiences. So again, thank you everyone for tuning in. We're going to start off with a few introductions. So I'll hand you over firstly to Debbie.
Hi everyone. Pleased to meet you all. And I'm Debbie. I work for Ted Baker in the development department, and I've worked for Ted Baker for 17 years now.
17 years. That's a long old while. I didn't actually know that. That's very impressive. Lovely. And Pete.
Hello, everyone. I'm Pete. I'm working for the Works store as a learning and development partner. I've been with the Works for about 4.5 years, but various different retailers over the last 15 years or so in learning and development.
Lovely jubbly. And Kristina?
Hi, I'm Kristina Tsiriotakis, Senior Director of Organizational Development and Learning for DECIEM, the Abnormal Beauty Company. We make amazing beauty products, and I've been really lucky to be part of the family for just under 3 years. But I think I've spent almost all of my career kind of in the retail game. I started out running a retail store, so this topic is very near and dear to my heart. Very happy to be here.
Lovely. Thanks, Kristina. And last but not least, Helen.
Hi everyone, I'm Helen. I am the Senior Learning and Development Manager at Dunelm. I see somebody in the chat is also from sunny but cold Leicester, so I feel that today. I've got the fire on. I've been working at Dunelm it's my 15-year anniversary this week, and done a variety of different roles through the people team, as we call it, and also working in buying and merchandising and business partnering the stores. So again, lots of wide experience in all things L&D across a multifunctional retailer. So yeah, really great to be here, share what we've been doing with our platform.
Amazing. Another veteran then. Very nice. So again, thank you everyone for joining today. A little bit of a different setup than what we usually do here at Thrive. This is a panel discussion, so the team here are pretty much just be having a natter amongst themselves, and we'd love for you to join that conversation as well. So do carry on adding comments in there, asking us questions and responding to any of the questions that we're doing here. It'd be lovely to have you all involved. So we've got a bunch of questions that we've prepared beforehand, and then we've also had quite a lot of questions come in from when you guys signed up to this webinar, so we'll definitely delve into those as well. But just to kick things off on a bit more of a casual basis, I'm going to ask you guys a quick icebreaker, and that icebreaker is going to be, have you ever met anyone famous? And Helen, I'm going to come to you first.
Let me unmute. So I've been racking my brains about someone who would be super interesting. All my, sounds like I've got loads. All my famous people are.
Let me get the list ready.
Come on. It's not that extensive, but they're all sport related. We're huge sports fans in our family. As even from the age of about 7, I've been going to watch Leicester Tigers play rugby. So from Leicester, so huge rugby fan. My wedding was Leicester Tiger themed. I'm that big a fan. And so I have met all of the World Cup winning rugby players who play for Leicester Tigers. They held an event at the home of rugby in Leicester, Welford Road. So I met Martin Johnson, Neil Back, Austin Healy. They probably those names probably mean very little to most people on the call, but that's my claim to fame, and I could talk about rugby all day long, so I better stop. So
love it. That's brilliant. You've set the bar very high there. I'm also a rugby fan myself, so very impressed. What about yourself, Pete? Any famous friends or bumped into any famous people?
So I'm pretty lucky. I live in Edinburgh, so every year we have the Edinburgh Festival, so we get kind of inundated with comedians, and some of them you don't know them when you meet them, but they go on to do things and become more famous. So Nish Kumar, Paul Merton, and a few other comedians that I bumped into. But the best one by far was Madge from Neighbours. she was definitely the proudest moment of person I've met up here.
Love it. That's brilliant. Lots of comments coming in as well. So let us know if any of you guys on the chat have met anyone famous. Would be lovely to hear. What about yourself, Kristina?
Well, I'm Toronto based, so I hope my references are still relevant in the UK. But when I was in university, I was a huge music fan. I loved indie rock. I was a huge fan of the Strokes. I had a huge crush on the lead singer. And then his kids ended up going to school with my niece and nephew out in New York, where my sister lives, and she became friends with his wife, which I didn't know. And my sister said to me one morning when I was visiting, come to a birthday party that Alexi and Georgia are going to. And I basically showed up in my pajamas, and there was the lead singer, Julian. It was his kid's birthday party. So not only did I meet him, but he was my crush, and I was essentially in my Sunday jammies. So that was a really proud moment for me.
Nice. Did you sort of build up the courage to have a conversation with him, or did you just cower in the
Not
background?
really. I sort of just was like out of the side of my eyes, sort of like around, but didn't say a ton. I didn't think it was my coolest moment.
Love it. And what about yourself, Debbie?
Wow, that's a really hard one to follow, Kristina. That's amazing. There's a couple that spring to mind, actually. I spent quite a bit of time in London a long time ago working in retail. And in the evening, I used to spend a bit of time wandering around Tower Records. And one night, I bumped into Jarvis Cocker. And as a teenager, I loved Pulp. And I was just totally starstruck to the point where I literally think I followed him around Tower Records. So that was probably the best. And I did bump into Joan Collins once, and she was lovely. She stopped to talk to us.
Oh wow, some good names we've just pulled out there. So I'm happy with the responses there. Love it. Lovely. Okay, I bet we best get my words out. We best get into some of the work conversations then. So as I mentioned, we've got a bunch of comments that we questions that we've got selected already from some of the things that you guys have asked on the panel. But keep those coming through and do let us know if you've got any more. So the very first question that we're going to start off with today, it's a relatively easy one to start us off nice and easy. What are some of the common retail training challenges that you guys sort of face on a day-to-day basis or in your experience within the industry? Debbie, I'll come to you on that one first, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. The huge thing for us as a business was communication across the teams. We're a global business and we're in multiple territories and multiple languages, and 70% of our workforce is actually retail and in the field. So we'd never had a learning platform before, and really we were using email to communicate with the team members. Obviously that has its challenges because you're then expecting, a line manager to filter down that information maybe gets missed. You don't have company email addresses or those company tools that head office team would have. So that's been the massive challenge for us, and the one that we had to overcome, especially with the pandemic and going into lockdowns.
Really interesting, very good. And we'll sort of, the next question is a little bit of a follow-up from that, and we'll have a chat about how you've sort of potentially overcome those. But anyone else on the panel that's got anything to add to that? Maybe yourself, Kristina?
Sure. I think one of the biggest challenge in the retail environment is the volume of things that we need our team members to be experts in. So your commodity, at DECIEM, our products are quite complex, and we really pride ourselves in really high level education and transparency around ingredients. So there's a wealth of product knowledge that the teams need, customer service. I think in COVID times, all of the new skills around dealing with customers, in these changing times, so many of the soft skills, I think the volume that our retail team members need to be expert in, especially given that some of them are part-time, casual, maybe they're only working 1 or 2 days. So scaling that information, making it accessible for team members that don't all work the same hours, don't all work full-time, and don't always have that time on the floor to get to that information, I think can be the biggest challenge, especially if you want to create an equitable experience in the retail space and you want everybody to have that time for learning.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in the retail space could definitely agree and relate to there, Kristina. Really like the point about retailers having to sort of be experts in everything now. And I've actually written a question that I'd like to ask you all about that in a little bit of time. So thanks for that. Lovely. So sort of moving on to the next question, which almost sort of like follows on from that question, is how you actually overcome these challenges. So I'll come back to you, Debbie, following your first point. So with your learners being very dispersed and in different locations, and to your point, what have you done to overcome those particular items?
I mean, it's always been a challenge for us, and something that we had to work on. However, when we hit the pandemic, and then we've got different teams at different stages of it, or different territories, that became even more apparent, how we needed to get really important information out to the team, whether that be COVID related, health and safety, or whether that be well-being information as well. And using email, we don't know if it's landing. And we actually launched Thrive whilst we were still in lockdown as well. So it absolutely exploded for us, and we went straight to 80% active learners. So all those well-being, any communication, everyone could access, and also we could make sure that they could access it and get feedback on how those things had landed as well.
That's really interesting. Yeah, we found a lot of organizations in a very similar situation to yourself, particularly when the pandemic hit, because they had all of these dispersed learners and they didn't really have a central place where they could communicate with each other or even share knowledge with one another, help them in this brand new environment. So Thrive really unlocked those channels of communication and learning. So yeah, that's a really cool point. Lovely. Anyone else that has anything to add to that? How you've overcome particular retail challenges, or should we jump on to the next question?
I'll just add a bit to that, Will, if that's okay.
Yeah, lovely.
One of the challenges that we have always faced is being able to get dedicated learning time with colleagues, because they're so busy, especially in stores, and kind of linking to what Kristina was saying around, often they're working shorter contracted hours, that they're not in store for huge amounts of time, and obviously the store wants to utilize their colleagues to be talking to customers, serving, and etc. So as actually getting dedicated learning time has always been a challenge. So the fact that we've now got our Thrive platform has allowed us to build our content in a very different way. We were very traditional pre-pandemic in our learning and development offering of doing lots of face-to-face delivery, bringing people together for a full day, because if they're coming to visit a particular store to do some training, let's have them all day. Let's train them on lots of different things, lots of topics. Let's, fill all those hours we have them for. And actually the return on investment was probably not the best, because people only have a certain amount of attention span. So the fact that we now have our Thrive platform, it's allowed us to create and build content in bite-sized chunks, meaning that we can deliver really meaningful learning to people in chunks of 10, 15 minutes at a time. It's easier for the stores to be able to allow people to have time out of the day job to be able to go and do the learning. And similarly, we're kind of upskilling people at the same time, and they're getting it in a more engaging bite-sized way, and then able to go and practically apply what they're learning kind of instantly, because they're doing it in their own store, in their own environment, and then they go off and apply those new skills. So yeah, that's just something that we've done since the pandemic. We've kind of revolutionized how we look at L&D as a business. So it's been in some ways a good thing for us, the pandemic.
Yeah, that's really cool points there. I like to think of Thrive as being a way of sort of replicating how we learn in our personal life, but just doing it in a workplace. So everyone to learn, you go to YouTube or you go to your mobile and search for something and find something at the point of need. And the platform, the Thrive, is that, but just within a workplace. So it's making sure you just change the mindset and make sure your learners are going to the right place for the right information. Lovely. Okay, cool. So moving on to the next question, speeding along. So question specifically about our LXP and why you guys are implementing an LXP instead of an LMS. Just for a little bit of context for everyone on the call. So everyone on the call here has Thrive LXP, Pete being one of our latest customers, so starting the implementation very soon, and the rest of the guys have had Thrive for a good while now. So Helen, I'll come back to you if that's okay. You're relatively new with the platform. Why did you choose an LXP over an LMS?
It kind of links to what I was just saying, actually, that we were quite traditional in our approach. So we had an LMS beforehand, before the pandemic, and we used it in a traditional kind of way of very much for compliance-based or role-based training, mandatory stuff, health and safety, kind of things such as that was the only reason why people went onto the platform, pretty much. And actually, what we recognise is that that's not the best learning experience for people. And actually, people want to have, I guess, experience is the key word. People want to experience something. And what Thrive has given us is an opportunity for that exploration. We want to drive self-led learning and self-led development that is, yes, we still use the platform for those things such as mandatory training or compliance-based learning that we need to do, but we also are driving kind of engagement with the platform through different campaigns and bite-sized pieces of content that is outside of their normal day-to-day remit, so they can explore and learn for themselves. And we really want to focus on building meaningful careers for people, and that exploration and people finding things for themselves is one of the key things of, you know, why we chose the Thrive platform. An experience platform is what we're wanting to kind of really push and promote for teams. And I guess, I don't know, Will, if you've got a link there to our Step Up programme, whether people want to just see that. So it's another great way of being able to, what we've identified is colleagues that we see have got strong growth potential through our Thrive platform. We're able to target those specific colleagues directly and get learning to them. They can navigate it and explore it in their own time, at their own pace, but they can really engage with not only some kind of content that sits on the platform, such as mini modules to work through in terms of key skills, but they also can work through and book onto lunch and learns with key people in the business to kind of build skills in areas as they start to want to progress. So this current one that you're looking at on the slide here is for our colleagues who want to move into a team leading type role. So it's lunch and learns that are in those key areas of things that are outside of what they're currently doing, and we're using this to kind of fast track people through to be ready to kind of move on to that next step. But the platform can mean we can target and get to those people really easily, and they've got a guided path that they can work through in their own time. So another great example of how we're kind of encouraging that self-led learning and self-led development with a bit of targeted intervention from the L&D team.
That's really lovely. And just to confirm, you can see my screen here, can't you?
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah, I was looking at the platform myself, thinking, oh, this looks really lovely. I thought, I hope everyone else can see this as well. So yeah, no, that's a really, really great answer. I think the fact that you mentioned the fact that yes, Thrive does have that traditional LMS capabilities, which everyone needs in an organisation, but a huge part of Thrive is facilitating or giving the learners the information that they might just want to explore and want to benefit themselves. So thank you so much for that. Anyone else have anything to add there in terms of why you chose an LXP over an LMS?
Yeah, I could add to that, Will. I think for us at the start of the pandemic, what we noticed is there was a major shift in the way people were consuming content. So historically, we've very much like Dunelm being quite traditional in our approach, lots of face-to-face learning or longer sort of click next style e-learning programs. But we noticed that people were starting to access our current platform from home using mobile phones a lot more rather than desktop PCs. And so the LXP felt like the natural way to go because that's how people were evidently wanting to consume the information anyway.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And Pete, you're at the start of your journey with us as well. So that's really lovely to hear. And you haven't even had the platform implemented yet. So hopefully in maybe 6 months' time or years down the line, you can join again and show everyone who joins exactly what the Works LXP is going to look like.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Wonderful. Okay, cool. So thank you very much for that. And moving on swiftly. So a big part of you guys and retailers is the fact that you have loads of new starters at different points throughout the year. So I'd really love to sort of delve into how onboarding has maybe improved or how you've change the way that you onboard your learners with potentially Thrive LXP or any new technology that you're using. So Debbie, I'll come to you with this one, if that's okay first.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, ours has changed massively in the last few years. We actually had physical workbooks as our onboarding for retail. And they were very beautiful workbooks, lots of lovely illustrations, full of storytelling, really creative. The problem with it was, as soon as those workbooks were printed, things were out of date. And as Kristina said before, everything is changing so rapidly, even, especially in the last 2 years, but even before that. So keeping on top of that wasn't really an option for us. It was there and all of a sudden out of date. When we've now we've got Thrive, it means that on day one, a team member will automatically receive their onboarding. It also means that they can get on with it themselves. The manager doesn't have to sit down and go through a workbook with them. There's also, that information that's being delivered is the right information. It's a consistent information. Sometimes it can be a little bit Chinese whispers when you're actually doing it from a workbook or sat with your manager. So a team member can get on with their training, but then they can go on the shop floor and they can actually experience what they've been learning from Thrive, and they can do it in the flow of work. So a manager can now use that time to coach the team member and give that team member feedback, which is a really important part, because obviously, the tasks are high and time is tight at the moment. So it's really had an amazing effect on how we deliver onboarding with the retail team.
That's really interesting. Thanks, Debbie. And I think we did a little bit of work with you to try and figure out how many trees you've saved and how much money you've saved since implementing Thrive. And it was quite a considerable amount. Am I right in saying that it was around about 130 trees over 5 years or something like that you've saved?
Yeah, it worked out like 150 trees.
150
yeah,
trees.
Because the workbooks, and we had one for team members and one for managers, you're looking at about 120 pages, all full color, all beautiful. But yeah, when we had to update them, we had to do a reprint. And also we had some online information as well that the team members would go and print from the back office and use them to go out on the shop floor, because they didn't have, they've got their mobile now and they can instantly just scroll through their onboarding. But walking about with, A4 sheets of paper as well doesn't really do well for the environment. So yeah, 150 trees.
Love it. And I know you Kristina, to you, I know that you use Thrive quite considerably for onboarding as well. How have you found that change?
Well, one of the biggest supports for seasonal onboarding this year was creating a dedicated seasonal pathway. I think anyone who scrambles to hire for that time of year knows how difficult it is. You usually don't have all your hires in by the time your training is meant to go live, and that can be really difficult because usually you only have a few dedicated days. You're trying to cram a ton of information into your new seasonals. You don't know what to pick and choose from. You can't get them to be as expert as your team members that are kind of core, but using pathways on Thrive, and I think you might have a link to one of ours, Will, as well. But that was great for us this year because it meant we didn't have to have all of the seasonal hires ready on that same day. It gave us a lot more space for different regions to hire kind of in the time that they needed to. And then we had our seasonal pathway ready. The learners who have different schedules, different weekly hours, were able to consume that in their own time. And we could expand what they were focusing on. Not only did we focus on product knowledge, but we could focus on wellness, whole human development, our people and culture more, because we could curate different sections of that pathway and kind of allow those learners to consume that as they see fit. So you can see, we love pathways at DECIEM, and we love to kind of divide things between core learning and extended learning. And we love to make sure that not only are we curating content, but there's always kind of experiential learning, lots of questions for teaming and bonding to take what's happening in the pathway back onto the floor. And while we provide some guidelines for how much time you might spend on a section, we're also not about compliance-based learning. So we want to inspire people. We might try to encourage them to complete this content, but maybe not every seasonal hire would complete every last piece. It really just depends on how inspired they are. But they can keep that learning going for the entire month or two that they're with the company, rather than just having that 1 day or 2 days that they're being kind of overloaded with information, which is nice. I think you're on mute, Will.
It was always going to happen to someone. It was just probably going to be me all the time, wasn't it? It's a classic one. So I was just going to pick up on the fact that I love the fact that you keep your pathways open and allow your learners to come to any section that they want to. With the platform, we do have the ability to restrict these, and some organizations might need to restrict these processes. So you've got to complete this module or this quiz before you proceed through to the next pathway. But I just love how your learners can come straight into here, and if you want to find something about NEOD, they can do that straight away, and there's no restrictions. And as you mentioned, having that on the browser here, like you can see, or via the mobile, gives them the information that they need straight away. So that's really lovely. Thanks for sharing that.
A few really practical things to note too are, like, we love social and collaborative learning. So we love the fact that our learners can see the answers from their peers globally to some of these questions. That just helps them build community and build relationships. Sometimes in a retail environment, you feel like you only know your store team. You know, there's thousands of amazing employees, but you don't always get to meet everybody else in the business. So it's just a really nice way to see your peers. You can follow those peers. You can build relationships across countries, across the globe. And then something that we love to do is also user-generated content challenges, and we'll pull those into the pathways. So you can create a little section where you now have videos. In our case, it might be skincare regimens, product testimonials, customer experiences that are shared across team members too. So that social and collaborative element and that ability for the learner to also be the teacher and to share and trade their knowledge just makes it so much more engaging, and it keeps it changing in real time. So to Debbie's point, like, your onboarding book might be static, but if it's a pathway, you can change that week over week or month over month and keep it dynamic for your learners as well, which is great.
Absolutely. I often find myself just coming into your platform and looking at the latest TikToks that people have uploaded or videos, because they're just so fun to watch. Lovely. And so the next question links really nicely with that, actually, Kristina. I'd love to stay with you on this conversation. So maybe through the onboarding process or just through implementing Thrive, how do you think product knowledge has transformed across the organization?
I think in our case, and again, anybody who knows DECIEM knows that we have very technical scientific information with our products. And that was very difficult to bring to life prior to digital learning and prior to having a learning experience platform. We're now able to present that information in so many formats. I call it sort of micro to macro. We can have job aids, cheat sheets, videos, e-learning. We can present those as little individual pieces of information. We can present them as booklets. We can put them into different pathways with experiential learning. So you can dial it down or dial it up and have somebody no longer have to remember every last bit of information, but just be able to kind of access it in real time. But as I mentioned earlier, I think the best thing is that trading of information from our peers, where they can share their knowledge, their insight. There's so many resources that our people create. They love to have user-generated challenges for, in our case, it might be the skin cell or different regimens. So they have so much fun and they're so much more actively involved with it. Something else that is really big for us is getting teams like our lab, our scientific team involved. We do a lot of events with them. Anytime we launch new products, we'll do interviews with them so we can bring the storytelling of the products to life. And you just can't do that without something like an LXP. We'll keep those videos, we'll add them to different pathways. Our learners are able to have direct contact with the lab and learn about the innovation process, from product to shelf. It just makes it so much more based on storytelling and so much more human and so much more purpose-driven as well to be able to do that. And you can do it so quickly with an LXP, which is great.
That's really cool. And we can absolutely tell that your learners are loving the platform and the content that you're putting in it, just from the engagement stats that we can see in the back end. You're definitely one of our most engaged customers. So really well done for all that. Quick side question. So Claire's asked, does everyone at DECIEM speak English? Just wondering about social learning and collaboration across different languages. very quickly, from my point of view, Thrive is a multilingual platform, so we can have all sorts of different languages available, and we can even translate, or the learners can even translate the comments within the platform themselves. So if someone leaves a comment in Spanish, a learner, an English learner, can go into there and translate it into English. So it allows me to not have to learn additional languages, but also understand what some of my colleagues are saying, and collaborate and communicate with them directly through the platform's translations. Wonderful. Okay, cool. So moving along, so we've had a chat about how that product knowledge has been transformed. I did actually want to come back to you on that, Helen, actually, because you've had the platform for well, it's certainly under a year, isn't it? So yeah, it's not as long as what Kristina and Debbie have had the platform. So in the time that you've implemented the platform, have you seen any change there?
Yeah, so we definitely, again, we're very traditional in our approach. We had lots of product knowledge workbooks that our colleagues in stores would work through when they first started, and then there would be the occasional update here and there, but it would be a bit hit and miss. So what Thrive has allowed us to do is to kind of get direct access for colleagues to the buying team, to be able to ask questions directly, or that they can, when we put the product knowledge content onto Thrive, because of the comment functionality, they're able to either share what they love, or ask a question about something, or query the size of something. So it could be that, you know, what size does that particular cushion, what size is that going to come in, so that they're really clear when they're talking to their customers about it. And rather than having to ask the store coach, and then the store coach asks their regional coach, and then that might come back into the office, and we feed that into the commercial team, they just go straight to the buyer and say, put a comment in there, and we as admins can support that to make sure it gets the right person. But if they're tagging the right people, and because you can see user profiles, it allows them to kind of get direct to the source of the answer, rather than having to kind of go all around the houses like they've had to do previously. And then when we have new product launches or new ranges landing, a bit as Kristina was describing, is we've created a product hub on Thrive. You've got a link for that, Will, actually, if you wanted to share that. And that is an opportunity when we go into twice a year, we'll do a relaunch of the season. So spring, summer and autumn, winter. And what you can do, that goes direct to colleagues, and it shares the inspiration. They get the director from the design team, who's kind of come up with all the trends and themes. That her team, she talks directly to all our colleagues in stores about why we've chosen the things we have, why we've chosen the color palettes or the themes and the trends. And then it breaks it down, as you see on the screen here, the different categories of product in our business. And the category teams, the commercial teams, are talking direct to the colleagues themselves, with sometimes it's a video, sometimes it's a bit of a PowerPoint deck that they pulled together with a voiceover of them talking it through. But it just means that in real time, they're getting regular product updates and seasonal updates. So the one that Will's just showing here is kind of our Christmas product from last year. So it just means we can go direct to colleague with all of that great information, and it isn't sat in a workbook that, to Debbie's point, is out of date as soon as it's written, you know, or within the next season it's out of date. It means it's real, it's in the moment content. So yeah, so that's just a different way that we're using the platform, and the colleagues have access to iPads and their mobile phones on the shop floor. They're allowed to do that, so they can be talking to customers and have it right there in their hand, you know, that kind of instant resource to be able to make sure they're upskilled, feel really confident when talking to customers about product.
Really cool. Thanks for that. I'm glad to see that Christmas campaign was for this year and not next year. I know retailers love to start the Christmas trend early, but you weren't too early there, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, Christmas 2022 is signed off. It's done.
It's done already. I honestly can't believe that. It's amazing. And you alluded to it there, Helen, in terms of how you allowed access to Thrive on sort of like the shop floor to your retailers. Tell us a little bit about how you allow your learners to access the platform.
So we do it in a couple of different ways. We have a particular role in our stores is called a host, who are their only role in their job is to just talk to customers. So they're called hosts. They have iPads on them, so it means they can be in the moment with a physical product, touching, feeling, talking to customers about it. But then also they can use Thrive to navigate with product knowledge on the shop floor. They can get that key piece of information that maybe not quite sure on, because they can go to the guide that's sitting on the platform. And then also we because we know it's hard, I mentioned it earlier, it's hard to get dedicated time with colleagues for learning off the shop floor. So they because Thrive has got the app, we encourage our colleagues to download the app, and they're allowed to have their mobile phones with them, so they can use the app for in the moment learning and development as they're on the shop floor, or when they're in the rest area, when they're on their lunch break or whatever. They don't have to go and sit in what we used to have training rooms. They don't go and sit in the training room and have to log into a PC anymore. They've just got instant access to learning, whether that is functional stuff for their job, development opportunities they want to explore. They can kind of do it in real time.
Really cool. Thank you so much for that. And what about yourself, Kristina? How do your learners access the platform?
Well, we do have protected learning time in our retail stores. That's one of our key performance indicators. And I would say that we were able to make that business case through looking at the data and looking at the engagement, and then also understanding where there were some barriers. I think continuous listening and asking your team members where they might be struggling to get that time, that dedicated time, can really help you make a business case. We have iPads in all of our stores, of course, so that our team members can access all content, not just product-based content, but content around the human stuff, soft skills, customer experience, all of the technical skills that they need. But the other things that we really focus on is the communication piece. Because I think, again, sometimes in retail, you can feel like you're not maybe connected to the home office, or you might feel really isolated in your region, especially if you're part of a larger country or global business. So we really use Thrive for continuous communication, and then that community engagement piece, so that people can really feel connected to one another. We had so many people tell us that Thrive really saved them during COVID. It's what, especially when people were working from home or feeling disconnected from other parts of the world, it's that piece that it's almost like their North Star that they would go back to feel a sense of community, to keep feeling belonging, having those relationships be nurtured. When you were showing our homepage, our CEO, Nicola, had just posted an update video yesterday. She does that really frequently. And imagine if you're a retail team member hoping to get a little bit of airplay, maybe your goal is to grow into the office and you're able to at the CEO and provide a comment, and she gets a notification on it and is able to reply back to you. It builds such family and such community. And I think that's the biggest thing for our people that makes such a big difference. So anybody who sort of hears that thing about LXPs being like a Netflix, I don't think it's anything like that at all. It really is like a community hub. And for us, we call it like the glue of DECIEM, because it really keeps our people connected, especially in the retail space.
That's so cool. Thanks for sharing that, Kristina. And another lovely thing that I really like about your platform, as well as the branding, so that's always really cool, but is your explore section, and to that point of giving your learners the content that they need at the point of need. So Thrive Explore section is almost sort of like a hub or a library of everything that you've got available on your platform, so your learners can access stuff really quickly. And a tile within your explore section I really like is the fact that you've just got some of your products within here as well. So if someone in the retail store gets asked a question on Hylamide, they can come right into here, click Hylamide and click the educational cards, and they've got all of the information they need at the point of need. And again, when they go into the piece of content, if they want to tag their colleague in that, or if someone asks them a question about that over lunch, they can share that directly within the platform. So just a really cool piece that I wanted to show there. Lovely. Okay, cool. So moving on to next question. Kristina, this one might be a really good one for you, because I know how engaged your platform and your audiences are. But the question is, what advice do you have to anyone that wants to sort of increase engagement with learning amongst retail?
I think I mentioned earlier how important listening is, and listening to your people and receiving that continuous feedback as part of your strategy. So we spend a lot of time getting feedback, speaking to our retail teams, asking them what they need more of, what's working, what's not working. We have a monthly dedicated retail pathway, and we're constantly feedbacking with retail to find out, what did you like from it this month? What worked for you? What wasn't relevant? Having that psychological safety for your people to say, this was helpful, but actually this wasn't. Another thing is really thinking about multiple different types of learning journeys. So I mentioned that we try to think micro to macro. We think about content and organizing it in our channels in real bite-sized pieces, but then we think about how we can create shorter pathways, longer pathways, or experiences or programs. So really thinking about dialing things up and down, because in retail, there's so many diverse experiences and team members, like I mentioned, who just have one day, maybe a week that they're working, up to your full-time team members. And then the last thing for me is lots of gamification. So we love challenges. Our retail team members love contests. Anytime we gamify and we have user-generated challenges, they get super involved. We have a block on our homepage that we activate and then sometimes remove that literally just is our contests and challenges. Whenever we have those new challenges, we try to keep it really simple, communicate that really consistently, do lots of shares and releases so they have something just to have fun with. We've done mystery challenges, we've done scavenger hunts, we've done challenges with social impact, like completing a certain amount of content, and we'll plant trees. You know, we try to play with different types of challenges just because people love individual competition. They love to compete with their fellow retail stores. They love to cross-team compete. So we just did a mindfulness challenge where we mixed up our retail staff with our office population. So we just try to keep those contests fresh to keep that element of excitement.
That's really cool. Thank you so much for that. Just keeping everything, like you say, keep it fresh, keep it engaging, keep it changing at all times. And the platform gives you the ability to do that. What about yourself, Debbie? Any thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Listening to what Kristina was saying as well, it's really been building that community for us and that collaboration. And all of a sudden, you know, every team member at Ted Baker across the globe has got a voice, and we can share in those conversations. And that's what's really increased the engagement. We haven't had that before. We, for example, we get our leaders involved as well. So our chief people officer does like a well-being article or blog, and it's often quite personal stories, or you know, it's a different theme every time, and our team members are able to, you know, jump in on the comments and have those conversations around the topic as well. So that's been really, really important for us, definitely.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so we're moving on. And the next question is around how you equipped your learners and your staff with all the skills that are required in a retail space. I actually read a survey a couple of weeks ago. It's called Tulip Retail. And surprisingly, it said that they found that 83% of shoppers believe they're more knowledgeable than retail store associates, which I actually thought was quite a rude thing to say. But reading on, it says that, however, 79% of survey respondents said that they acknowledge that store associates are important or very important. So people are coming to the store saying, I'm actually more knowledgeable than you on the shop floor, but I actually really need your help. So Pete, what do you think about that? And how have you been able to sort of give all of your learners all the skills you think they need?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something we have struggled with in the past, if we're honest, as a retailer. And it's one of the reasons why we're launching Thrive. Evidently, the experts for most retail skills sit in retail. They're out in our stores. They're out, you know, in Scotland, in London, in Wales, wherever the stores are based, and they're not sat in our head office in the Midlands. Unfortunately, without a central place to work from, what you end up with is a lot of good practice sharing, but also bad practice sharing going on, and no control over that, and no monitoring of that. So what Thrive we're hoping is going to allow us to do is to enable that sharing on a wider basis from colleagues all over the country, but to give us a little bit of ability to monitor it and manage it centrally, so that we can use that expertise really, really well, but also just pick up any bad practices that are going on and direct them to some more appropriate learning.
That's really cool. Thanks so much for that. And yeah, really looking forward to seeing how you get on with your Thrive journey. I know that you've had our microlearning content for a number of months, and now you're stepping into the LXP world. So excited to see how that progresses.
It's going to be very, very different moving forward, but hopefully a lot slicker and a lot more successful.
Yeah, different in a good way, I hope.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Lovely. Okay, cool. So I'd like to move on to some audience questions now. So loads of people have submitted questions prior to this event. So we're going to jump into some of those exciting questions. And the first one is from a lady called Andrea. And that question is, what is the one thing that is most important in ensuring excellent learning in your environments? Pete, am I right to stay with you on this one? Have you got any thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, I think the key, particularly in a retail environment, is keep it simple, keep it relatively short, and keep it relevant. That's all it boils down to. We're a small retailer. We tend to have perhaps 2 colleagues in a store at a time. If we start putting learning into 30, 45-minute e-learning packages, they're just not going to engage with the learning. They're not going to be able to take in what they need to. So short, bite-sized pieces of learning which are really relevant to their role and which ideally sit alongside the day job, and they can find real experiences to match to that learning, is absolutely the key for me.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And hopefully that's answered your question. The second one we've got on here is Simon from Blue Square. I think we have touched on this throughout the conversation so far, but Simon's asked, what approaches do you take to increase learner engagement with field or remote-based teams? Debbie, I know you touched on this earlier, but is there any differences that you take for people that are maybe in the head office as opposed to people who are in the remote or in the field?
Yeah, I mean, getting those people engaged has been a massive thing, and one of the things that we've thought about is that human element of it as well. We're all working in different areas, so we're not having chance to have those little breaks over the water machine, or and potentially you're going on calls or meetings, and it's all work conversation. You're not having opportunities to find out about the person. So one of the things that we introduced was something called Time for Tea. We posted it as an event on Thrive, and it's really been such an interesting thing. It's a 30-minute tea break. You book on and you pop in, and the only rule to it is that you can't talk about work. You can't talk about what role you are, what you do. It's literally just about you. And so it's been really interesting because we've had on these calls, we've had people from South Africa or New York or Germany drop in. After the events, they all jump on and have the conversations about things that they might have talked about, like music. So it's been a really nice one for us just to keep people engaged. I quite often found myself having meetings with someone and knowing over Teams, but knowing absolutely nothing about them. And as soon as I recognised that, I think it was a lady I was on a call with, and she had a child's tent behind her. And we'd been speaking all year, and I had no idea whether she had children or who the little tent was. So, luckily she jumped on one of the calls, and where I was able to find out a little bit more about her. But that's been really successful for us.
Oh, that's such a lovely story. Thanks for that, Debbie. Brill. I think my other question popped up there. Yes, Annette. In addition to the contents and challenges, does anyone of the panel have advice on encouraging user-generated content from retail teams? Anyone want to jump in on that one?
Go on. Sorry.
No, go on. You go, Helen.
I was just going to say we haven't activated our user-generated content yet. That's the next step. So we're about 6 months in, and we wanted to kind of get it landed and people comfortable with the platform before we then moved on to user generated. But we see some definite opportunity, especially with sharing best practice and encouraging people, if they're really proud of something in their store to share it. So historically we had something called Picture of the Week, but we could have that through Thrive, that people could just be sharing something they're really proud of, whether that is a new display that they've done, whether it's a customer, like a bespoke customer order that's been made and brought into store ready for collection, whether it is an event they're holding in stores. So we also have done some local connections in with the local communities and local small businesses, where they can come and set up a stand in store and run their business out of a Dunelm store on a Saturday, to kind of support them in what they're doing in their business. So sharing some of that through the platform. So I think there's loads of opportunity to just create higher levels of engagement, share best practice, share ideas, share challenges, things that aren't going so well, and what advice have people got to be able to be collaborative. You know, we have 175 stores across the whole of the UK. And as somebody mentioned earlier, you know, you don't know the people outside of your store most of the time. So what a great opportunity to be able to build that network of colleagues and be sharing those experiences. And as I say, best practice, top tips, that kind of thing. That's our next thing for Thrive, I think.
Amazing. Excited to see some of the content that comes as a result of that. That's going to be awesome. Lovely. So another one of the questions that we had submitted before the session was from Laura at Fine Foods. And she said, what do you believe is the best learning and development strategy approach to take, and how do you decide? Appreciate this is quite a broad question, but Kristina, it would be lovely to hear your thoughts on this, if that's okay.
Yeah, we've been really honored to win some awards in our strategy this year, and we're very passionate about a holistic learning strategy. So we think about holistically content across, of course, product and brand, making sure our team members are really connected to our brand purpose, our brand DNA. But then we try to look really holistically at the human skills, human and leadership skills, emotional intelligence, well-being, and really think about all of those areas. And then, of course, the technical skills that our team members need. We try to think about that across blended modalities and types of learning to offer a really inclusive and diverse experience. And then it's really important to us that we think about that formal education and really connect it to experiential learning and exposure to others. So we don't spend all of our time in content, which I think is really important, to really think holistically about how that content then connects to holistic learning experiences. Something else that's been really important for us is making sure that all of our team members across DECIEM and in retail have continuous development goals. So we have a quarterly model for learning goals, and we teach our team members to focus on one of those learning pillars, to focus on some formal education, but then to connect that again to experiential learning and exposure-based learning. So I think trying to be as holistic as possible is really important to make sure that people have a really human and whole experience, rather than sort of thinking what's the one thing that is the right thing to do. It's, I think, trying to curate a little bit of a lot of things so that people can dial it up and dial it down as they need.
That's really cool. Thanks so much for that, Kristina. As you said, you've won some amazing awards in the industry, so it's great to hear your insights on that. I'd like to stick with you for this next question, if that's okay. David from DFS has asked, what advice do you have for anyone working in an organization that is slow to recognize the benefits of social or user-generated learning?
I think a few things are really important. One thing that I've learned is pushing up the data, even if it's month over month, and even if people haven't asked for that reporting. Sometimes, I remember when we started with Thrive, and we're almost 3 years old with Thrive now, but there was this perception that people weren't using the technology, and they were, but you had sort of like your detractors or your skeptics who were just kind of assuming that. And so it was really important that we took the amazing data that was easy to access, and we just pushed that up and we shared it with our senior team, so they understood where the engagement was happening, the positive sentiment and the response that was happening. In terms of being skeptical around user-generated content, again, what I've learned about user-generated content is people need an entry point. They're waiting for somebody to normalize something, to make it safe, to make it comfortable. And a new learner using a new LXP might not feel comfortable, sharing something online if they haven't seen that role modeling, or they don't have something really specific. So we focus on continuous campaigns and really specific asks and challenges, so people have a reason. We make sure that we engage different people across the business. So there's that role modeling. We try to partner with those field managers or team leads to make sure that the message isn't just coming from us, but also coming from people's direct people managers. And then when we have engagement in one area of the business, it could be one store, one region, one set of super learners, we really try to lean into that and spread that like wildfire. So we might share, do releases with that user-generated content to show everyone else, like, hey, this is fun. People are enjoying it. I think, Rome isn't built in a day, and things take time, and you have to look for where the successes are and build on that slowly versus thinking you're going to turn the lights on and it's going to spread throughout the business in one fell swoop. That consistency over time, suddenly you blink and it's part of the culture and it's so normalized, and a year goes by and you think, oh, it wasn't so hard after all. It's just about, I think, having grit and really sticking to it.
That's really cool. Thank you so much for that. I really like the part of almost finding those content champions within the organization and encouraging them to post, which will hopefully encourage others within the organization to do so as well. So we've had a question from the audience again. So thanks, Emma, for the question. So anyone feel free to jump in on this one. With adoption of the LXP, do you find people still express a desire to take part in facilitator-led learning at the same time? Anyone want to jump in on that one?
I'll jump in on that one.
Lovely, thank you.
So we have been able to do quite a lot of workshops on Thrive as well. People can book in on the events page, and we can have a subject matter expert go through that workshop to anyone that's booked on as well. So really encourages self-directed learning. Or we can add a list to people that need to go on that workshop and send that invite out to them. So we still had that facilitator-led learning. In terms of the classroom, previously, pre-pandemic, we were doing classroom sessions. Now those topics, communication, motivation, etc., we're doing on pathways on Thrive. But then within time, what we'll go to is a blended learning approach. So we're not going to go back to half day or full day classroom sessions, but we'll have that approach where they'll have some learning on Thrive. They'll maybe have a knowledge check, they might attend a workshop, and then they might have to do an assignment. So that's the approach that we'll be going to. So no, it hasn't been. We've been able to fit that need really well, actually.
That's really interesting. Again, using the events, but also utilizing other things around that event to make it sort of a blended learning experience. Really cool. So I'm conscious of time. We've got around about 3 minutes left. The next question is popped up from ASOS. So anyone's feel free to jump in on this one. The question is, how do you keep your virtual and digital learning fresh and engaging? What platforms do you use? Who wants to take that one? Any takers?
I'll jump in. Yeah. I think what we've tried to utilize is the campaign function, so that we have a campaign running nearly all the time. Sometimes we might have a couple of weeks where we've just kind of got a holding banner, but outside of that, we will have a campaign that is driving new content to our colleagues. They're getting multiple releases for different campaigns. So it's kind of drip feeding. There's always something new to go and look at and explore. So I think that's the way to, I guess, to drive people to the platform. And when we look at our engagement stats and how people join, how are they accessing pieces of content? It tends to be from the notification email. That's where that's how most people are moving to the platform. So we know that when they're getting those notification emails to say there's new material there, they're using that link and they're going through and they're looking and they're exploring. We definitely have some way to go to changing behaviours and attitudes around, I thought this was just for mandatory compliance-based or role-based learning, and there's a Halloween quiz. What's that about? This seems a bit strange. And we had a comment about that when we did a Halloween campaign. And it's kind of linked to what Kristina says. You're not going to change attitudes. You're not going to build Rome in a day. So, but the more you can make use of those campaigns and that functionality and that engagement, will drive people to the platform. They'll understand what it's about, and then they'll hopefully, whilst they're there, they'll explore and find new things. So that's what we do.
That's really cool. Thanks, Helen. And just for a bit of context about what campaigns are on Thrive. So campaigns are essentially things that sit right at the top of your learner's homepage, which can almost sort of grab their attention and get them exploring stuff which they might not have thought to explore before. And we can use these for initiatives throughout the year. So whether it's Mental Health Awareness Week, Black History Month, Pride Month. So it's really good to sort of engage them in that fresh content. And I think majority of you are utilising our other service, our content club, some of the content from there as well. Has anyone got any comments about how you've utilised that to maybe keep the platform fresh and up to date with everything that the learners can see?
Well, yeah, I can jump in on that. So one of the things we've been doing, obviously we're not using the LXP yet, but one of the things we've been doing is adding and removing content regularly. So adding wellbeing and mental health training during Mental Health Week, adding equality diversity training during Black History Month, and then taking it off again, so that we've always got a churn of content on our current platform. We don't have the banner facility at the moment, so when we move to Thrive, then that would be fantastic, and we can just perhaps put a spotlight on it rather than adding it and removing it. But just using it at relevant times of the year where we think people are in the best place to absorb the information in the content.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Pete. That's brilliant. Okay, so right, we are at time, but we're going to go with another question from Andy. Hi, Andy. Thanks for joining. So Andy's actually changing jobs and moving into the retail world next week, which is very exciting. Any tips or words of advice for learning and development in retail? Anyone's welcome to take this one, and this will probably be the last question.
I could jump in with this one super quick. I think I think to realise that L&D are not the gatekeepers of learning. And to realise that we really need to get the team involved and let the team have their say, and that's why Thrive is so perfect for us. We are at 50% probably user-generated content on the platform, and that can be anything from showing best practice of selling skills, or it could be someone with an amazing talent that they want to share to the whole business. So really use the team around you, because there's so many experts within the retail space, and that will really help drive engagement as well.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And thanks again for the question, Andy. So very conscious of time. Everyone's very busy. So we're going to have to cut it there. There are loads of other questions that we didn't get a chance to go through. So I'm so sorry about that. But I will myself follow up with everyone who joined the call today and everyone that ask questions to try my best to answer them. I could even try and potentially put you in contact with some of the amazing team that you can see on the screen here. So thank you everyone very much for your time, and thank you to you guys for joining. It was amazing to hear some of your wonderful insights. A couple of things to go through very quickly. So the next webinars that we'll be running are on the 9th and 10th of February. Unfortunately, Learning Tech isn't going to be going ahead as planned in Feb, so we're going to be doing some live product tours of our learning experience platform and our content club. We're going to be joined by some exciting customers like DPD, so be sure to sign up to those. And for this event, we actually had an offer of offering 10 of our free content club resources to someone who joined the event today, and that lucky person is Hannah Adams from ASOS. So congratulations, Hannah. I'll be in touch after this, or the team will be in touch after this to let you know what modules you want, and we'll send those to you free of charge. But without further ado, thank you so much, Kristina, Helen, Debbie, and Pete. Sorry, it was really lovely to speak to you all, and I hope you have a nice afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.